The fluorescent lights in Dr. Keen's office buzzed like angry wasps, casting everything in that special shade of medical white that makes you feel like you're already dead. I sat there, watching my wife Erica fidget with her Hermes purse, the one that cost more than my monthly salary, while she explained to our fertility specialist why we needed to explore other options. "David and I have been trying for 5 years," she said, her voice carrying that practiced tone she used in court. "We've done everything: diet changes, supplements, timing charts that would make NASA jealous. Nothing works." I wanted to point out that maybe the problem wasn't entirely medical. Maybe it was hard to conceive when your wife scheduled sex like a business meeting and checked her phone during foreplay. But Dr. Keen was nodding sympathetically, so I kept my mouth shut. "IVF has excellent success rates for couples in your situation," he said, sliding a glossy brochure across his mahogany desk. "The process is straightforward, though it does require significant commitment from both partners." Erica leaned forward, suddenly animated. "What about genetic screening? Can we ensure the baby has certain characteristics?" The question hit me wrong. We'd never discussed wanting specific traits in our child. Hell, I'd have been happy with 10 fingers and 10 toes. "We can screen for genetic disorders," Dr. Keen replied carefully, "but cosmetic preferences aren't typically part of the process." "Of course not," Erica said quickly, shooting me a glance. "I just meant health-related concerns." That should have been my first warning sign. But I was 36, desperate to be a father, and willing to believe my wife wanted the same thing I did: a family built on love, not specifications. The next 6 months were a blur of appointments, injections, and clinical procedures that stripped every ounce of romance from the concept of creating life. Erica threw herself into the process with the same intensity she brought to her cases at Morrison, Klein, and Associates. She researched everything, questioned every protocol, and somehow managed to charm the entire clinic staff. "Your wife is remarkably thorough," Dr. Keen told me during one visit. "She's requested detailed information about every step of the process." I found her thoroughness admirable then. Now I know she was planning something that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage. The day of the procedure, I sat in a sterile room with outdated magazines, providing my sample in a plastic cup while trying not to think about how unromantic the whole thing was. Through the thin walls, I could hear other couples going through the same awkward ritual. At least we were all equally uncomfortable. Erica was in the procedure room for 2 hours. When she came out, she seemed different, excited in a way I hadn't seen in years. She kept touching her stomach and talking about our beautiful baby, with a certainty that both thrilled and unnerved me. "How can you be so sure it worked?" I asked, as we drove home through the October rain. "I just know," she said, staring out the window with a smile I couldn't quite read. "This baby is going to be perfect, David. Absolutely perfect." 9 months later, Olivia was born. 8 pounds, 2 ounces of screaming, red-faced perfection. I cried when I held her for the first time, overwhelmed by a love I'd never experienced before. She was everything I'd dreamed of: healthy, beautiful, and mine. Except for the eyes. Olivia had the most striking blue eyes I'd ever seen. Not the muddy blue-gray that many newborns have, but brilliant, crystal-clear blue that seemed to look right through you. They were exactly like the eyes I'd stared at across countless dinner tables during Erica's previous relationship. Justin Morrison, her ex-boyfriend of 3 years. The one she'd claimed was just a friend, even after I'd caught them having lunch together twice in the first year of our marriage. Babies' eyes change, I told myself. Genetics are weird. My grandmother had blue eyes. But my grandmother's eyes were nothing like these. These were Justin's eyes, down to the distinctive dark ring around the iris. The comments started when Olivia was 3 months old. "She doesn't look much like you, does she?" my sister Karen said during a family barbecue, bouncing Olivia on her knee. "Those eyes are something else. Remind me of someone." My neighbor Bob was more direct. Kid looks just like that lawyer guy your wife used to date. What's his name? Morrison? Small world, right? Each comment was a small knife twist. I started avoiding social situations, making excuses when friends wanted to meet the baby, but I couldn't avoid the truth staring back at me every time I looked at my daughter. When Olivia turned 6 months old, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until she was napping and confronted Erica in our kitchen. People keep saying Olivia doesn't look like me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. They're saying she looks like Justin. Erica was loading the dishwasher, her back to me. She paused for just a moment, so briefly I almost missed it, before continuing with the dishes. People see what they want to see, she said. Genetics are complicated. You can't expect a baby to look exactly like one parent. But she doesn't look like me at all, Erica. Not even a little bit. She turned around then, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Not guilt, exactly. More like calculation. Are you seriously questioning whether Olivia is your daughter? She asked, her voice taking on that courtroom edge. After everything we went through to have her? I'm not questioning anything. I'm just trying to understand. Understand what? That genetics don't follow your expectations? That babies sometimes look like distant relatives? Or are you looking for an excuse to walk away from your responsibilities? The accusation hit like a slap. That's not what this is about. Isn't it? Because it sounds like you're having second thoughts about being a father. I should have pushed harder. Should have demanded a paternity test right then. But Erica had a way of twisting conversations until you were defending positions you'd never taken. By the end of our fight, I was apologizing for bringing it up. But the doubts didn't go away. They grew stronger every day, fed by every glance in the mirror, every family photo, every well-meaning comment from friends and strangers. The breaking point came when Olivia was 8 months old. I was working late in my home office when I heard Erica talking on the phone in our bedroom. She was speaking quietly, but our house had thin walls. I know it was risky, she was saying. But look how perfectly it worked out. She has your eyes, your nose, even your stubborn chin. I crept closer to the bedroom door, my heart hammering. Of course David doesn't suspect anything. He's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. He thinks genetics are just random luck. There was a pause, then laughter. No, the clinic never questioned it. I told them there was a mix-up with the labeling, and they were so worried about liability they just went along with it. Amazing how easy it is to manipulate people when you know their weaknesses. Another pause. Justin. She's beautiful. She's everything I wanted our daughter to be. Perfect genes, perfect features. David will never know the difference. I stood frozen in the hallway, listening to my wife describe the systematic destruction of my life like it was a successful business transaction. When she finally hung up, I stumbled back to my office and sat staring at my computer screen until dawn. The next morning, Erica acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, fed Olivia, and chatted about her cases like she hadn't just confessed to the most elaborate betrayal I could imagine. I spent the day researching DNA tests, custody laws, and grounds for divorce. But every article I read painted the same picture. Proving paternity fraud was difficult, expensive, and emotionally devastating for everyone involved, especially the child. That evening, I decided to confront her directly. Erica, I said, as she was putting Olivia to bed, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. She looked up from the crib, her expression carefully neutral. What is it? Is Olivia my daughter? The question hung in the air like smoke. For a moment I thought she might deny everything, might gaslight me into believing I'd imagined the phone conversation. Instead, she sighed and sat down in the rocking chair beside the crib. Biologically? No. The simple word hit me like a physical blow. Even though I'd suspected, even though I'd heard her confession, having it confirmed felt like falling off a cliff. How? I managed to ask. I swapped your sample at the clinic with Justin's, she said matter-of-factly. It wasn't difficult. I volunteered to handle the paperwork, made friends with the staff. When you were providing your sample, I simply substituted it with one Justin had given me earlier. Justin knew about this? Of course he knew. He was as excited as I was about the possibility of having a child together. I stared at her, trying to process the magnitude of what she'd done. But he's married. Happily married, actually, to Anna. They have their own life, their own plans. This was just a way for us to create something beautiful together without disrupting anyone's existing relationships. Without disrupting... I couldn't finish the sentence. The casual way she described destroying my life was breathtaking. David, you have to understand. I wanted the best possible child. Justin has superior genetics. He's tall, athletic, intelligent, attractive. His family has no history of genetic disorders. It was simply the logical choice. The logical choice, I repeated numbly. Yes. And look at Olivia. She's perfect, beautiful, healthy, smart. Everything we could have wanted in a daughter. Everything you could have wanted. What about what I wanted? You wanted a child. You have one. The genetic details are irrelevant. I looked at Olivia sleeping peacefully in her crib, completely unaware that her entire existence was built on a lie. She was beautiful. She was perfect. And she wasn't mine. I need some air, I said, heading for the door. David, wait. We need to discuss how we're going to handle this. I turned back to look at my wife. Really look at her. The woman I'd loved, married, and trusted with my deepest dreams had orchestrated the most elaborate deception I could imagine. And she was talking about handling it, like it was a minor inconvenience. There's nothing to handle, I said. You've made your choices. Now I'll make mine. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my office, staring at the wall and trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with the information that my entire life was a lie. By morning, I'd made two decisions. I was going to verify everything Erica had told me, and I was going to make sure everyone involved faced consequences for what they'd done. The first call I made was to Dr. Keen's office. I scheduled an appointment under the pretense of discussing future fertility treatments, but what I really wanted was access to our records. Mr. Chen, Dr. Keen said when I arrived that afternoon, I understand you have some concerns about your previous treatment cycle? I have concerns about the integrity of your clinic's procedures, I said, pulling out my phone. I'd like you to listen to something. I played the recording I'd made of Erica's confession the night before. I'd waited until she was in the shower, then asked her to repeat everything she'd told me, claiming I needed to understand the full scope of what had happened. She'd obliged, apparently believing that honesty would somehow make the situation better. Dr. Keen's face went white as he listened to Erica describe how she'd manipulated his staff and compromised the clinic's procedures. This is impossible, he said when the recording ended. Our protocols prevent this kind of substitution. Apparently your protocols aren't as foolproof as you thought. He was quiet for a long moment, probably calculating the legal and financial implications of what he'd just heard. Medical fraud, malpractice, regulatory violations, Erica's little scheme could destroy his clinic. What do you want? He asked finally. I want my wife blacklisted from this clinic and any other fertility clinic in the network. I want a full investigation into how this happened, and I want assurance that you'll cooperate with any legal proceedings that might result from this. Mr. Chen, if we report this, it becomes a criminal matter. Your wife could face serious charges. That's her problem, not mine. Dr. Keen nodded slowly. I'll need to consult with our legal team, but yes, we'll cooperate fully. This kind of fraud, it threatens everything we've built here. My second call was to Anna Morrison, Justin's wife. I'd found her number in Erica's phone, listed under a yoga class, in what I now realized was a pathetic attempt at discretion. Anna? This is David Chen, Erica's husband. I think we need to talk. There was a pause. About what? About why my 8-month-old daughter has your husband's eyes. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Finally, she spoke, her voice carefully controlled. I think you'd better come over. Justin's at work so we can talk privately. Anna and Justin lived in one of those new developments where every house looked like it was designed by the same architect having the same bad day. Lots of glass and sharp angles, very little warmth. Anna answered the door in yoga pants and a Northwestern sweatshirt, looking like she'd been expecting bad news. Come in, she said, leading me to a living room that looked like a furniture showroom. Can I get you coffee? I'd rather just get to the point. She nodded and sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap. Tell me what you think you know. I played the same recording I'd shared with Dr. Keen. Anna listened without expression, but I could see her jaw getting tighter with each word. How long have you suspected? She asked when it was over. Months, but I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. You weren't. She stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the perfectly manicured lawn. I've known something was going on between them for over a year. Late-night phone calls, mysterious meetings, the way he'd smile when he looked at pictures of your daughter on Erica's social media. Why didn't you say anything? What was I supposed to say? I think my husband helped your wife commit fertility fraud? It sounded insane even to me. She turned back to face me. But now that I know for sure, now I can do something about it. What do you mean? Anna's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. I mean, Justin is about to learn that betraying your wife isn't just morally wrong, it's financially devastating. Over the next hour, Anna laid out her plan with the precision of a military operation. She was a forensic accountant by training, and she'd been quietly documenting Justin's suspicious behavior for months. Phone records, credit card statements, unexplained absences, she had it all. I've been building a case for infidelity, she said, showing me a thick folder of documents. But this is so much better. This is conspiracy, fraud, and about a dozen other things that will make our divorce very expensive for him. You're divorcing him. David, my husband participated in a scheme to deceive you about the paternity of your child. He helped your wife commit what amounts to medical fraud, and he did it all while lying to my face about their relationship. She closed the folder with a snap. Yes, I'm divorcing him. I left Anna's house feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not hope for reconciliation. That ship had sailed. But hope for justice. That evening, I confronted Erica again, this time with backup. We need to talk, I said when she came home from work. David, I thought we settled this last night. What's done is done. We need to focus on moving forward. Actually, what's done is just getting started. I told her about my conversations with Dr. Keen and Anna. With each revelation, her face grew paler. You recorded me? She said when I finished. You committed fraud. Recording you seemed like the least of our problems. David, you don't understand the implications of what you've done. If this becomes public, it doesn't just hurt me. It hurts Olivia. It hurts you. It hurts everyone. It should have hurt everyone when you decided to lie to me about the paternity of my child. She is your child. Biology doesn't determine parenthood. Love does. Commitment does. The day-to-day work of raising a human being does. Don't lecture me about commitment. You committed fraud. Erica sat down heavily on the couch, finally seeming to grasp the magnitude of what was happening. What do you want? She asked. I want you to face the consequences of what you've done. I want Justin to face the consequences, and I want everyone who's been laughing behind my back about how my daughter doesn't look like me to know exactly why. And then what? You get your revenge, destroy several lives, and feel better about yourself? I'll feel better about living in reality instead of the fantasy you created. The next few days were a whirlwind of lawyers, phone calls, and difficult conversations. Dr. Keen's clinic launched an internal investigation that quickly revealed how Erica had manipulated their procedures. 2 staff members were fired, and the clinic faced regulatory review that would likely cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Anna filed for divorce, citing adultery and fraud. Her forensic accounting skills proved invaluable. She'd documented not just Justin's involvement in the IVF scheme, but also financial irregularities in his business that suggested other ethical problems. But the real bombshell came when Anna discovered something neither of us had expected. "David," she said when she called me at work, "I need you to sit down." "What is it?" "I found something in Justin's files. Something about Erica that changes everything." "What kind of something?" "The kind that suggests this whole thing was planned long before you and Erica ever went to the fertility clinic." Anna's discovery came in the form of a manila folder hidden in Justin's home office, tucked behind tax returns from 2018. She'd found it while gathering financial documents for her divorce attorney, and what she discovered inside made our situation infinitely more complicated. "Look at this," she said, spreading documents across my kitchen table while Olivia napped upstairs. "These are emails between Justin and Erica dating back 3 years. 3 years, David. They were planning this before you even started having fertility problems." I picked up the first email, printed on Justin's home computer. It was dated 18 months before our first visit to Dr. Keen's clinic. Been thinking about our conversation. If you're serious about having a child together, we need to be smart about it. Direct approach too risky for both our marriages. But if you were to have fertility problems that required medical intervention, lots of opportunities for creative solutions. J. The reply from Erica's personal email account was even more damning. J. I've already started tracking my cycles and documenting failed attempts. David's so eager to be a father, he'll go along with whatever the doctors recommend. The key is making sure we use a clinic where we can control the process. I'm researching options. E. Jesus, I whispered, flipping through more emails. She sabotaged our attempts to get pregnant naturally. It gets worse, Anna said, pointing to another exchange. Look at this one from 6 months later. E. Found our clinic. Dr. Keen's practice is perfect. Small staff, loose protocols, and the head nurse is more interested in gossip than procedure. I can work with this. E. J. What about David? Won't he suspect something when the kid doesn't look like him? J. E. David sees what he wants to see. Always has. By the time he figures out anything's wrong, it'll be too late to matter. Besides, he's so desperate to be a father, he'll rationalize anything. E. I had to stop reading. The casual cruelty in Erica's words was breathtaking. She'd known exactly how much I wanted children, and she'd used that knowledge to manipulate me into participating in my own deception. There's more, Anna said quietly. Financial records showing payments from Erica to Justin. Looks like she was paying him for his contribution. She paid him? $5,000. Transferred in 3 installments over the course of your IVF cycle. I stared at the bank records, trying to process what I was seeing. My wife hadn't just betrayed me. She'd turned our attempt to have children into a business transaction. Anna, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Of course. Did you know? Any of it? She was quiet for a long moment, and I could see her wrestling with something. I knew Justin was having an affair, she said finally. I'd suspected for months, but I thought it was just sex. I never imagined this. When did you figure out it was Erica? The day Olivia was born. Justin came home from the hospital. He said he'd stopped by to congratulate you both, and he was acting strange, excited but trying to hide it. He kept talking about how beautiful the baby was, how perfect she looked. Anna pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. He sent this to his brother that night. Saw the most beautiful baby today? Looks just like family. Couldn't be prouder. His brother didn't think that was weird? His brother thought he was talking about being a godfather or something, but I knew better. Justin doesn't get emotional about other people's kids. We spent the next hour going through the rest of the documents. The scope of the deception was staggering. Erica and Justin had planned every detail, from the timing of our fertility struggles to the selection of the clinic to the cover story they'd use if anyone got suspicious. But the most damaging evidence was a document I almost missed, a draft custody agreement between Erica and Justin, outlining how they would share access to their child if their respective marriages ended. They were planning to divorce us, I said, reading the document twice to make sure I understood it correctly. Eventually, yes. This was never meant to be permanent. They were going to let us raise the children. Notice it says children, plural, until they were old enough for custody battles to be less disruptive. Children? Anna pointed to another email exchange. They were planning to do this again, at least 2 more times, maybe 3. I felt sick. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted with my deepest desires and fears, had been planning to use me as an unwitting sperm donor and babysitter while she built a secret family with her ex-boyfriend. "What do we do with all this?" I asked. Anna's smile was grim. "We destroy them." The next phase of our revenge required patience and precision. Anna and I spent 2 weeks carefully documenting everything, making copies of all the evidence, and consulting with attorneys about the best way to proceed. My lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Vance, was fascinated by the case. "I've seen paternity fraud before," she said during our first meeting, "but never anything this premeditated. The email evidence alone is enough to support criminal charges." "What kind of charges?" "Fraud, conspiracy, possibly extortion, depending on how we frame the financial payments. And that's just the criminal side. Civilly, you have grounds for divorce with cause, potential damages for emotional distress, maybe even a claim against the clinic for negligent supervision." "What about Olivia?" Patricia's expression softened. "That's the complicated part. Legally, you're her father. Your name is on the birth certificate, you've been raising her, and you've acted as her parent since birth. Justin would have to file for paternity to change that, and given the circumstances, no court would grant him custody. So she stays with me? If that's what you want. The question is whether you can separate your feelings about how she was conceived from your feelings about her as a person." I thought about Olivia, sleeping peacefully upstairs while her entire world was about to explode. She was innocent in all this. Whatever else happened, I couldn't let her suffer for the sins of her biological parents. "She's my daughter," I said finally. "Biology doesn't change that." Patricia nodded. "Good. That'll make everything else much easier." The confrontation we'd been planning finally came together on a Thursday evening in November. Anna had convinced Justin to meet her at their house under the pretense of discussing their divorce settlement. I was waiting in the living room when he arrived. "What's he doing here?" Justin asked, seeing me on his couch. "Sit down, Justin," Anna said. "We need to talk." "If this is some kind of intervention—" "It's not an intervention," I said, pulling out the folder of evidence. "It's a reckoning. We laid it all out for him. The emails, the financial records, the custody agreement, everything. With each piece of evidence, Justin's face grew paler. "Where did you get these?" he asked when we finished. "From your office," Anna said. "Amazing what you can find when you actually look." "Anna, I can explain—" "Explain what? How you conspired to commit fraud? How you took money to help my husband deceive me? How you planned to destroy 2 marriages so you could play house with your ex-girlfriend?" Justin looked at me, maybe hoping for some kind of male solidarity. "David, you have to understand." Erica was persistent. She kept saying how much she wanted a child, how you weren't able to give her what she needed. "Stop talking," I said quietly. "She made it sound like you were okay with it, like you'd discussed using a donor." I said, "Stop talking. Look, maybe we can work something out. I don't want to cause problems for anyone." I stood up and walked over to where Justin was sitting. He was taller than me, probably stronger, but he shrank back in his chair like a guilty child. "You already caused problems," I said. "You helped my wife commit fraud. You took money to betray me. You made plans to steal my daughter, and you did it all while pretending to be my friend." "David, I'm sorry. I know how it looks." "You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." Anna stepped forward. "Justin, here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign whatever divorce papers my attorney puts in front of you. You're going to accept whatever settlement I offer, and you're going to stay away from David's family." "And if I don't?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the recording app. "Then we take all of this to the police, the state medical board, and every news outlet in the city. Your choice." Justin stared at the phone, then at the evidence spread across his coffee table, then at his wife's determined face. "This is blackmail," he said weakly. "No," Anna replied. "This is consequences." The next few weeks unfolded like a carefully orchestrated demolition. Anna and I had agreed to coordinate our attacks for maximum impact, and the results exceeded even our most optimistic projections. Justin folded first. Faced with the choice between a quiet divorce and public humiliation followed by criminal charges, he signed Anna's settlement agreement without negotiation. She got the house, half his business, and enough alimony to ensure he'd be financially uncomfortable for years to come. But Anna wasn't satisfied with just financial revenge. "I want him to understand what it feels like to have his life built on lies," she told me over coffee at a diner halfway between our houses. "Money is just money. Reputation is forever." She'd been busy since our confrontation with Justin. Using her forensic accounting skills, she'd discovered that Justin's car dealership had been engaging in questionable financing practices that bordered on fraud. Nothing criminal, but enough to trigger an investigation by the State Consumer Protection Agency. "I may have anonymously forwarded some documents to a reporter friend of mine," she said, with a smile that could have powered a small city. "Amazing what you can find in someone's files when you're gathering evidence for a divorce." The story broke on a Tuesday morning. Local car dealer under investigation for predatory lending practices. By noon, Justin's dealership was swarming with investigators and reporters. By evening, his business reputation was in ruins. But the real masterpiece was what Anna did to Justin's social life. "You know what the worst part of all this was?" she asked during one of our planning sessions. "Having to smile and pretend everything was fine while he was lying to my face? All those dinner parties, all those couples events, all those times I had to watch him charm our friends while he was betraying me." Anna had decided that Justin should experience the same humiliation. She threw a dinner party, a divorce celebration, she called it, and invited everyone in their social circle. The invitation was a work of art. "Please join me in celebrating my freedom from my lying, cheating, fraud-committing, soon-to-be ex-husband. Drinks, dinner, and detailed explanations of exactly why I'm so happy to be rid of him. BYOB, bring your own boundaries, because Justin never learned about those." 23 people showed up. Anna had prepared a PowerPoint presentation. I wasn't there. I was home with Olivia. But Anna called me afterward to describe the carnage. "I started with the affair," she said, barely able to contain her laughter. "Showed them the emails, the financial records, the whole timeline. Then I moved on to the fertility fraud. By the time I got to the business ethics violations, half the room was taking notes." "How did people react?" "Let's just say Justin won't be getting invited to any dinner parties for a while, or business networking events, or charity fundraisers. I may have mentioned that anyone who continues to associate with him is essentially endorsing fraud." Within a month, Justin was a social pariah. His business was under investigation, his divorce was costing him a fortune, and his reputation was destroyed. But Anna still wasn't finished. "He needs to understand that actions have consequences," she said. "Real, lasting consequences." The final blow came when Anna discovered that Justin had been claiming tax deductions for his charitable contributions to Erica, the payments he'd made for his genetic material. She forwarded this information to the IRS, along with documentation showing that he'd failed to report the income from Erica's payments. Tax evasion is a federal crime, she explained cheerfully, much more serious than anything we could get him for at the state level. Harold Morrison's face went through several interesting color changes as he processed what I was telling him. First, the polite neutrality of a man who bills by the hour and expects clients to waste time on personal melodrama. Then the faint irritation when he realized I wasn't here to discuss incorporation paperwork. And finally, the tight, controlled anger of someone who has spent decades polishing a reputation only to hear a scratch forming on the surface. He didn't interrupt me, which told me he understood the rules of power. Let the other person talk. Let them commit to their version, then decide whether you crush them or use them. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and laced his fingers, staring at the folder as if it might bite. "Mr. Chen," he said carefully, "you're making serious allegations." "I'm presenting serious documentation," I replied, and slid another page forward, not aggressively, just enough to keep the momentum. "This isn't a marital spat. This is conduct. These are dates. These are communications. This is the pattern." He lifted one sheet, scanning it with the kind of attention lawyers reserve for things that can cost them money. His eyes moved left to right, then down, then back up again. He wasn't reading for drama. He was reading for liability. "Where did you obtain these messages?" he asked. "From devices and accounts I have lawful access to," I said. I didn't overshare. Oversharing is a weakness. "I'm not asking you to take my word for anything. Verify it. Pull your IT logs, check email headers, review her billing entries, compare the dates against her timesheets. You have all the tools." His jaw tightened slightly. That was the first crack in his professional mask. "You understand," he said, "that even if your claims are accurate, we have procedures, we investigate, we do not act on a spouse's revenge." I finished for him, with a small smile. "I get it. That's why I'm here, because your procedures are exactly what she counts on. She counts on everyone being too busy, too polite, too afraid of discomfort to follow through. She counts on the firm protecting itself by keeping its hands clean. The problem is, the firm can't keep its hands clean if one of your attorneys is wiping blood on the curtains." That earned a long, cold look. Lawyers hate metaphors. They love consequences. He set the paper down. "What is it you want, Mr. Chen?" There it was. The real question. Not whether Erica did it, not whether the firm would investigate. What I wanted. In his world, every person who brings a file to a corner office wants something: money, leverage, silence, a settlement, a public spectacle. He was trying to label me so he could handle me. "I want you to protect your firm," I said. "And I want you to protect your clients. If Erica is willing to do what she's been doing outside this building, you should be asking what she's willing to do inside it." Morrison's eyes narrowed, sharp with calculation. "You believe she's compromised professionally?" "I believe she's reckless," I said. "I believe she's dishonest. And I believe she's the kind of person who treats rules as something that only applies to other people. That's not a personality quirk in your line of work. That's a ticking bomb." He didn't respond immediately. He stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city like it could offer him a clean answer. Then he turned back and opened a desk drawer, pulling out a legal pad, writing a single line at the top. Not notes. A heading. The beginning of an internal file. "You said she used firm resources?" he asked, "to facilitate personal misconduct?" "I'm saying she used professional credibility to disarm people," I replied, choosing my words with care. "She used her title, her connections. She leaned on the firm's reputation like it was a shield, and she did it while presenting herself publicly as ethical and superior." Morrison's pen stopped. That word, shield, landed. Prestigious firms don't fear scandal because it bruises egos. They fear it because it erodes the only thing they really sell: trust. Trust is their product. Trust is their brand. He looked at me again, measuring. If we open an investigation, he said, it will be thorough. It may involve your cooperation. It may involve questions you don't enjoy answering. I'm not here to enjoy myself, I said. The faintest hint of approval passed over his face, gone quickly. Leave the documents, he said. My compliance officer will contact you if we require additional information. I stood, but I didn't rush. Rushing looks like desperation. I adjusted my jacket, paused at the edge of his desk, and looked him directly in the eye. There's one more thing you should consider, I said. Yes? Erica is smart, I said. But she's not careful. She mistakes confidence for invincibility. She will assume she can talk her way out of this. She will try to manipulate your people. She will try to charm them, intimidate them, guilt them, flatter them. She'll make it about me, about our marriage, about how I'm unstable. That's her move. Don't let her turn your process into her stage. Morrison's gaze hardened. We don't run stages here. I smiled again, smaller this time. Good, because she's used to rooms where everyone claps for her. I left his office with the folder lighter and my mind heavier, that particular kind of heaviness that comes from setting something irreversible in motion. Elevators are strange places after decisions like that. You stand among strangers who smell like perfume and coffee, all of you pretending the day is normal, while you quietly watch the first domino wobble. Erica didn't know yet. That was the beauty of it. She went through her Monday like a queen on a board she believed she owned. She'd be in meetings, speaking in that smooth, clipped tone she used when she wanted to sound unimpeachable. She'd laugh at someone else's joke. She'd adjust her hair in the glass of a conference room door. She'd send a few messages to the right people, confident that she was always the one pulling strings. And then, at some point, maybe that afternoon, maybe the next morning, someone from compliance would ask her for a quick conversation. They'd say it like it was nothing. They'd use gentle language. They'd offer water. They'd keep their faces calm. But the questions would be precise, and they wouldn't be interested in her charm. She'd try to smile through it at first. Erica always did. She'd play surprised, offended, amused. She'd frame herself as the professional forced to entertain a ridiculous accusation. She'd say my name with that subtle disdain she reserved for people she considered beneath her. She'd call it vindictive. She'd call it a personal matter. But Morrison, Klein, and Associates didn't care about personal matters. They cared about risk. They cared about the firm's name on the door. They cared about the way whispers become headlines, the way clients panic, the way rivals pounce. They cared about what Erica had cost them the moment she treated their prestige like her personal armor. That's why I'd gone to Morrison first, not HR, not some mid-level manager who would try to mediate and smooth things over. I went to the top because the top understands one simple truth. You don't negotiate with a liability. You isolate it. That night, while Anna was working her own slow surgical damage on Justin's world, I sat at my kitchen table and watched Erica's Instagram story update. A smiling selfie in a sleek office hallway, captioned with some smug line about long days, big wins. She looked polished, untouchable, the kind of woman who believed consequences were for other people. I set my phone down, walked to the window, and looked out at the city lights, steady and indifferent. She wanted to know what it felt like to be smarter than everyone else. Soon, she was going to learn what it felt like to be smarter than no one. You're saying that Erica Chen, one of our most promising associates, committed medical fraud to deceive her husband about the paternity of their child? I'm saying she planned and executed a conspiracy that involved multiple felonies, and she did it while representing herself as an officer of the court. Morrison was quiet for a long time, studying the evidence I'd provided. Finally, he looked up at me with the expression of a man who just realized his house was on fire. Mr. Chen, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We'll need to conduct our own investigation, of course, but if these allegations are substantiated... She'll be fired? She'll be reported to the State Bar Association. Attorneys who commit fraud don't get to practice law. That conversation took place on a Monday. By Friday, Erica was unemployed and facing a disciplinary hearing that would likely end her legal career. But I wasn't done. The thing about Erica was that she'd built her entire identity around being smarter than everyone else. She was the successful lawyer, the sophisticated woman who'd married beneath her station but made the best of it. She surrounded herself with people who reinforced that image: wealthy friends, influential colleagues, social connections that made her feel important. I decided to introduce some reality into her carefully constructed world. I started with her book club, a group of professional women who met monthly to discuss literary fiction and gossip about their lives. Erica had been bragging to them for months about how perfect Olivia was, how she had the most beautiful eyes and superior genetics. I showed up at their next meeting. "David," said Margaret, the group's organizer, clearly surprised to see me at her front door. "Is everything okay? Is Erica coming?" "Erica won't be coming," I said. "But I thought you all might be interested to know why Olivia has such beautiful eyes." I'd brought copies of the key evidence, the emails, the confession recording, the financial records. I handed them out like party favors. "Erica's been telling you that Olivia got her looks from superior genetics," I said, as 8 women stared at the documents. "She wasn't lying. They just weren't my genetics." The room was dead silent as they processed what they were reading. Finally, Margaret looked up at me. "She committed fraud to get pregnant with another man's child?" "She committed fraud, conspiracy, and probably several other felonies. And she's been bragging about it to you for months." I left them with the evidence and walked out. By the next morning, everyone in Erica's social circle knew the truth about Olivia's conception. But the real coup de grace came when I decided to address the elephant in the room, literally everyone who'd been whispering about how Olivia didn't look like me. I organized a party, not a celebration exactly, but a reveal party, where I invited everyone who'd made comments about Olivia's appearance over the past 8 months. Family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, anyone who'd ever looked at my daughter and wondered why she didn't resemble me. "Thank you all for coming," I said to the crowd gathered in my backyard. "I know many of you have had questions about Olivia's parentage. You've been too polite to ask directly, but I've heard the whispers. You've noticed that she doesn't look like me. You've commented on her striking resemblance to Justin Morrison. Well, I'm here to tell you that your observations were absolutely correct." I played Erica's confession for the entire group. 53 people listened in stunned silence, as my wife described how she'd systematically deceived me about the paternity of our child. "So yes," I continued when the recording ended, "Olivia doesn't look like me. She looks like her biological father, who conspired with my wife to commit fraud. You weren't imagining things. You weren't being rude. You were seeing the truth that I was too trusting to recognize." The aftermath was immediate and devastating. Within hours, the story was spreading through every social network in the city. By the next day, it was the subject of gossip at every dinner table, office break room, and social gathering. Erica tried to fight back, of course. She hired a lawyer, not from her former firm, and threatened to sue me for defamation, invasion of privacy, and emotional distress. "You can't prove any of this in court," she said during one of our final conversations. "It's all hearsay and speculation." "Actually," I replied, "I have recordings, emails, financial records, and testimony from multiple witnesses. Your lawyer should have explained that to you." "David, please, think about what this is doing to Olivia. Think about what this will do to her when she's old enough to understand." I am thinking about Olivia. I'm thinking that she deserves to grow up knowing the truth about her origins, not living in a web of lies created by her biological parents. She's going to hate you for this. Maybe. But at least she'll hate me for telling her the truth, instead of hating me for lying to her. The final confrontation came when Erica made one last attempt to salvage something from the wreckage of her life. She offered to disappear, to give up all parental rights and leave town, if I would agree to stop pursuing criminal charges. "You've won," she said, sitting across from me in my lawyer's office. "You've destroyed my career, my reputation, my social life. Isn't that enough?" "It's not about winning," I replied. "It's about consequences. You committed serious crimes. You can't just walk away from that." "What about Olivia? What happens to her if I go to prison?" "Olivia stays with me. She's my daughter, regardless of genetics. But she deserves to know that her biological mother faced consequences for her actions." Erica stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her finally understanding that the man she'd married, the man she'd thought was too weak and trusting to ever fight back, was gone forever. "I underestimated you," she said finally. "Yes," I replied, "you did." 6 months after that conversation in my lawyer's office, I stood in a courtroom watching Erica receive her sentence. She'd eventually pled guilty to fraud, conspiracy, and tax evasion in exchange for a reduced sentence of 18 months in minimum security prison and 5 years probation. Justin got 2 years and a $50,000 fine. His car dealership was shuttered, his professional licenses were revoked, and he was facing additional civil lawsuits from customers who'd been victims of his predatory lending practices. Dr. Keen's clinic was fined $200,000 and placed under regulatory supervision. 2 staff members were criminally charged for their roles in enabling the fraud. But the real victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the life I'd built for Olivia and myself in the aftermath of the scandal. I'd sold our house and moved to a smaller place across town, somewhere without memories of Erica's betrayal embedded in every room. I'd started a consulting business that gave me more flexibility to be home with Olivia. And I'd begun dating again, carefully, cautiously, but with hope for the future. Anna had become an unexpected friend and ally. Her divorce from Justin was finalized 3 months after mine from Erica, and we'd found ourselves in the strange position of being co-conspirators in our respective revenge plots. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked during one of our regular coffee meetings. "Going nuclear on them, I mean." "Never," I replied without hesitation. "They made calculated decisions to destroy our lives for their own benefit. They deserved calculated consequences." "What about Olivia? Any regrets there?" I looked across the coffee shop to where Olivia was playing with blocks in the children's area, her bright blue eyes focused intently on building a tower. She was 2 now, walking and talking and completely unaware of the drama that had surrounded her birth. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me," I said. "I don't care whose DNA she carries. She's my daughter." Anna smiled. "Justin asked about her, in one of the divorce mediation sessions. Wanted to know if he could have visitation rights." "What did you tell him?" "I told him that parental rights come with parental responsibilities, and he'd forfeited any claim to either when he decided to treat her conception like a business transaction." That was the thing that still amazed me about the whole situation, how Justin and Erica had managed to convince themselves that they could create a human being through fraud and deception without considering the consequences for that child. They'd been so focused on their own desires that they'd never stopped to think about what their actions would mean for Olivia. But Olivia was thriving. She was bright, curious, and affectionate. She called me daddy and ran to me when she was scared or hurt or excited about something. Biology might have made her, but love was raising her. The story of our situation had become something of a local legend. I'd been approached by reporters, bloggers, and even a documentary filmmaker who wanted to tell the story of the most elaborate paternity fraud in modern history. I'd turned them all down. This wasn't entertainment. It was my life. And more importantly, it was Olivia's life. But I had agreed to speak at a conference for men dealing with paternity fraud. The organizer had contacted me through my lawyer, explaining that my case had become a model for how to handle this kind of betrayal. What would you tell other men in similar situations? Asked Dr. Sarah Martinez, the conference moderator during my presentation. I'd tell them that the betrayal isn't their fault, but the response is their choice, I replied. You can let it destroy you, or you can use it as an opportunity to take control of your life. What about forgiveness? Some people would say you were too harsh in your response. Forgiveness is for people who are genuinely sorry for what they've done. Erica and Justin weren't sorry. They were sorry they got caught. There's a difference. And your daughter? How do you handle the complexity of loving a child who was conceived through deception? Olivia didn't deceive anyone. She's an innocent victim of her biological parents' choices. My job is to make sure she grows up knowing she's loved unconditionally, regardless of how she came into this world. The applause was long and heartfelt. Afterward, several men approached me to share their own stories of betrayal and ask for advice. Each conversation reminded me of how fortunate I'd been, not in being deceived, but in having the resources and support system to fight back effectively. One man, a construction worker named Mike, had discovered that his wife had been having an affair and that their son wasn't his biological child. But unlike my situation, there was no evidence of premeditation, no conspiracy, just a moment of weakness that had resulted in pregnancy. I don't know what to do, he told me. I love the kid, but every time I look at him, I see her betrayal. The kid didn't betray you, I replied. Your wife did. Don't punish him for her choices. But how do you separate the two? How do you love a child who's living proof that your wife cheated on you? It was a fair question, one I'd wrestled with myself in the early days after Erica's confession. You focus on the child, not the conception, I said. You remember that he needs a father, and you're the only father he's ever known. You remember that love isn't about genetics, it's about choice, and you choose to be his dad, regardless of biology. Mike nodded, but I could see he was still struggling. Not everyone could make the choice I'd made. Not everyone could separate their feelings about the betrayal from their feelings about the child. I was lucky that my anger at Erica and Justin had never extended to Olivia. As the conference ended and I prepared to drive home, I reflected on how much my life had changed in the 2 years since Erica's confession. I'd gone from being a passive victim of someone else's deception to being an active agent in my own life. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, more capable of fighting back than anyone, including myself, had believed. But more importantly, I'd learned that family isn't about genetics or biology or even marriage. It's about commitment, love, and the daily choice to show up for the people who matter to you. Olivia was waiting for me when I got home, playing in the living room with her babysitter. When she saw me, she dropped her toys and ran over with her arms outstretched. "Daddy!" she squealed, launching herself at my legs. I picked her up and spun her around, listening to her giggle with pure joy. Whatever else had happened, whatever betrayals and deceptions had brought her into my life, this moment was real. This love was real. This family, small and unconventional as it was real. That evening, after Olivia was asleep, I sat in my home office and opened the folder where I kept all the evidence from the fraud case. Letters from lawyers, court documents, financial records, email printouts, the paper trail of the most difficult period of my life. I'd kept everything, partly for legal reasons, but mostly as a reminder. Not of the betrayal, but of my response to it. Of the moment I'd decided to stop being a victim and start being an agent of consequences. At the bottom of the folder was a letter I'd never sent, a draft I'd written to Erica during the worst days of our legal battle. I'd been angry when I wrote it, furious at her casual dismissal of the damage she'd caused. But reading it now, I realized it captured something important about the entire experience. Erica, you keep asking me why I can't just let this go, why I can't forgive and move on for Olivia's sake. You seem to think that forgiveness means pretending your actions didn't have consequences. But here's what you don't understand. Consequences aren't punishment. They're education. They're the universe's way of teaching people that actions matter, that choices have weight, that you can't just hurt people and walk away unchanged. You made a choice to deceive me. You made a choice to conspire with Justin. You made a choice to treat our marriage like a business arrangement and our child like a commodity. Those weren't mistakes or accidents or moments of weakness. They were calculated decisions made by adults who thought they were smarter than everyone else. Now you're facing the consequences of those choices. Not because I'm cruel or vindictive, but because that's how the world works. When you commit fraud, you face legal consequences. When you betray your spouse, you face marital consequences. When you lie to your friends, you face social consequences. You want me to protect you from those consequences, to help you avoid the natural results of your own actions, but that would make me complicit in your deception. It would teach Olivia that lies don't matter, that betrayal is acceptable, that people can hurt others without facing any real accountability. I won't do that. Not for you, not for anyone. The man you married was willing to be your victim. The man you created through your betrayal refuses to be. That's the difference between who I was and who I am now. David. I'd never sent that letter because I'd realized that Erica didn't need to understand my motivations. The consequences spoke for themselves. But reading it now, I was struck by how accurately it captured my transformation from victim to victor. I closed the folder and put it back in the filing cabinet. Tomorrow was Saturday, and I'd promised Olivia we'd go to the zoo. She loved the monkey exhibit, always laughing at their antics and trying to imitate their movements. As I turned off the office light and headed upstairs, I thought about the future. Olivia would grow up knowing the truth about her conception, but also knowing that she was loved unconditionally. She would learn that families come in all shapes and sizes, that biology is less important than commitment, and that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who force us to become stronger. And maybe, someday, she would understand that her father's greatest victory wasn't in destroying the people who betrayed him, but in choosing to love her, despite the circumstances of her birth. That was the real revenge, not the legal consequences or social humiliation or professional destruction, but the simple act of building a better life from the ashes of betrayal, of refusing to let other people's choices define my future, of choosing love over bitterness, hope over despair, and family over genetics. As I checked on Olivia one last time before going to bed, watching her sleep peacefully in her crib with her stuffed elephant clutched in her arms, I realized that Erica had been wrong about one thing. She'd thought she was giving me damaged goods, a child whose origins would forever remind me of her betrayal. Instead, she'd given me the greatest gift of my life, a daughter who had taught me that love is a choice, not an accident, and that the strongest families are often the ones forged in adversity. Olivia stirred in her sleep, her blue eyes fluttering open for just a moment. When she saw me, she smiled, that pure, uncomplicated smile that children give to the people they trust completely. "Love you, Daddy," she whispered, then closed her eyes and drifted back to sleep. "Love you too, sweetheart," I whispered back. "Always." And in that moment, I knew that whatever else happened in our lives, whatever challenges we faced or obstacles we encountered, we would face them together. Not because of genetics or biology or the circumstances of her birth, but because we had chosen each other. That was the real victory. That was the real revenge. That was the real love.